Support for Destination Michigan is provided by the CMU Bookstore. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, maroon and gold memories, and an official outfitter of Adidas apparel at the Central Michigan University-owned and operated CMU Bookstore. Online shopping 7 days a week at cmubookstore.com. The CMU Bookstore, online at cmubookstore.com, on campus in the University Center, and game day locations at Kelly Short Stadium and the CMU Events Center.
Hello everybody, I'm Matthew Ozanek and welcome to Destination Michigan. We have a great lineup of stories for you today, so let's not waste any time and take a sneak peek of what we have coming up for you in this episode.
A lot of our UP values find their way into our brand.
The legacy of Stormy Kromer lives on in Ironwood.
Kind of my daughter's idea. We wanted to work together as a family.
Meet the Perrys of Mount Pleasant, a family that's discovered the secret to serenity. Then we pay a visit to Camp Grayling and Hartwick Pines State Park. Plus, discover something truly magical happening in Ann Arbor. All of these stories are coming your way on this episode of Destination Michigan.
For our first destination tonight, we're heading nearly as far west in Michigan as you can possibly go. We're heading to the town of Ironwood, right on the Michigan-Wisconsin border, where the welcome is as warm as a custom-fitted Stormy Kromer cap.
The Stormy Kromer cap, an invention of practical necessity.
A real person named George Stormy Kromer and his wife Ida invented this cap back in 1903. And George was a semi-pro baseball player and also then a railroad worker. And the legend has it that he lost one too many hats to the cold winds on the Midwestern plains on the train. And he came home one night with a baseball hat and asked his wife Ida to sew an earband onto it so that it would stay on his head and keep his ear warm.
Stormy Kromer caps are built to stand the test of our grueling Great Lakes winter weather. In fact, if Michigan had a state hat, it most likely would be the Kromer.
I think there's a lot of our sort of UP values that find their way into our brand. You know, resilience and hard work and determination and authenticity are all a part both of living here in the UP, but also a big part of our brand.
But it's turned into this kind of cradle to grave thing that just means more than just keeping your head warm. And it's so much fun to be part of that.
The Kromer is so beloved, it's become the fabric of families.
We get tons of family reunion photos where everyone is wearing a Kromer. There is a young boy, I forget where, somewhere in Lower Michigan, whose name is Kromer, and it is named for Stormy Kromer. And we know people who have called us and said, I just buried my dad, and his Kromer went with him, and I wanted you to know that, because it was that important to him.
We have a baby picture and the baby's 10 minutes old, father's holding it, they both have hats on, the baby's got a little red hat on. We call him 10-minute-old Charlie, but he's a 5-generation hat wearer. And so we bought into all these hunting camp and family traditions and Christmas card traditions.
The Kromer legacy is as resilient as the cap. If not for Bob Jacquart and a tip from a local retailer, the Kromer may have blown away in the wind.
Found me in a restaurant and said, they quit making Stormy Kromer hats, you better do something about it. And I just smiled at just this flash, I wore a hat. And you think, gosh, what would it be like to make something that you actually use, that you wear? And my knee-jerk reaction was, get me the number, I'll buy the company. I called the gentleman up and he said, young man, the problem with this product line is 80% of the sales is a 20-mile radius around where you're sitting in Ironwood, Michigan. And it was just going to be a tiny little project for me. It was going to be something I was going to learn how to do, keep that story alive of the hats that we all wear in the UP.
Bob's knee-jerk reaction turned his tiny little project into something more gargantuan than a UP mosquito.
Last year we sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 110,000 hats in a year. When we bought the company, their best year was, I think, 3,900 hats. So it's definitely grown quite a bit since then.
Stormy Kromer is a division of Jacquart Fabric Products. family built by 3 generations of Upers. As you might expect, behind every great cap is a great woman, providing a personal touch that rivals the haughtiest haberdasheries.
A couple threads hanging up here.
I'm very proud of what I do because I learn something all the time, but to be out in public and see something, to know I personally sewed that, it makes me feel very, very good.
No hat escapes the factory without the scrutiny of Inspector Jackson and her co-worker, Calla Corpella, who put the finishing touches on every cap.
Is there a special tie to it?
Yes, and yours is crooked.
Mine's crooked.
That is my downfall. When I see people in the street, I'll even stop and say, can I fix your tie? Trick is just like tying your shoe, but it's not very tight. See, now that, much better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
2,600 people made the journey up to Ironwood in 2017 to tour Stormy Kromer. Tours are free to the public, and you may just be lucky enough to meet the likes of Jeff Daniels or Ted Nugent, who have been known to stop by the factory from time to time. With great eateries like Max and Emily's, along with other boutiques and shops, there's always something fun to discover here in downtown Mount Pleasant. And as Stephanie Mills is about to show us, there's one new business that's raising a lot of excitement while reducing a lot of stress.
With its very unique services, Pure Vitality isn't a typical business you find downtown Mount Pleasant. But we promise you, you'll start feeling relaxed the moment you walk through the doors.
Well, first of all, I don't think there's any other businesses that have these services under one roof. We definitely knew that we wanted a juice bar. And then just kind of learning about stress and the services that we're offering, the float pods are just fantastic for reducing your stress levels. The saunas, infrared saunas, and the massage beds. Everything is basically stress relief and trying to make you feel better.
Meet Doug Perry and his 3 children, Corinne, Mitch, and Grant. They, along with Doug's wife, are the brains behind Mount Pleasant's very own Pure Vitality, a spa right downtown where nutrition and wellness go hand in hand and family takes center stage.
Kind of my daughter's idea. She was going to college in pharmaceutical and she thought about moving out west, and we decided to keep her home and start a family business. And we wanted to work together as a family.
From conception to construction to completion, Pure Vitality has been a family affair from the get-go. Everyone pitched in to make this dream become a reality. Wellness has always been a priority for the Perry family. They used to travel all over the country to use the services that they now provide here.
So this is an infrared massage bed. So it uses the same infrared technology as the sauna, so it's very healing for your body. With this bed, how it works is there's jade stones in the bed that go up and down each leg and up and down your back. So the infrared heats up your muscles and joints while the jade stones push out the toxins that are making you sore. So it's very detoxing and it's a very deep tissue massage.
This bed is approved by the FDA and also comes with attachments to help reach pain in problem areas. Studies have shown that a half hour on this bed equals the benefits of a 1-hour massage by a masseuse. Next up, what first piqued my interest? The float pod. It's something you don't see every day, so you can't help but be curious.
And it's 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt and 150 gallons of water. It's more dense than the Dead Sea, and it causes like a sensory deprivation. So it's really, really relaxing, and there's a lot of good health benefits from that.
So anywhere where like tension and stuff is built up, it just allows all that to like ease away, because essentially while you're in the pod, you have no gravity holding you back.
Because there's no pressure points on your body, the Epsom salt can really just draw out any pain or inflammation. So you come out and your body is just really revitalized and relaxed. You can customize your float however you'd like. You can use colored light for chromotherapy and you can listen to music. But kind of the idea behind the pod is if you just have it completely dark, you can really just relax your mind and turn it off.
But it's not just the feeling of relaxation that brings floaters back again and again. It's how it's treating pain for some of them.
One of our floaters in particular, he's lived years of his life in pain with rheumatoid arthritis. He wanted to give this a try because he heard it worked and he tried it and he felt much better afterward. He says it's the most relief from his pain that he's experienced in years.
From the pod to the sauna. While I've spent time in saunas, it's never been anything like this.
So it's an infrared sauna, so it's the good rays from the sun without the bad rays. So it's very energizing for our body. This is a very gentle heat. You never feel like you can't breathe. But you actually sweat more in this sauna than you will a regular sauna, even though it doesn't feel as hot because it's stimulating your cells.
About a half hour in the sauna can burn up to 300 calories, which is similar to the effect that a 2 or 3 mile run can have on your heart. If the services aren't enough to get your juices flowing, maybe the juice bar will. The Perry family creates a variety of juices and smoothies to help pack in your daily servings of fresh fruit and vegetables, something many of us aren't getting enough of on a daily basis.
We wanted to make sure we included it so there was an all-in-one place for complete health, and nutrition is really vital to health.
Coupled with their wellness services, it's hard not to feel like a new person when you experience a visit here.
You know, it's a place to come, and when people walk in this door, I hear people say, I feel better already. You know, without even doing a service. It's just incredible. So the vibes that we're trying to put out here is just to help you rebalance and just revitalize and just relax.
In addition to the juice bar, the Perrys have started to add some healthy food options to the menu, including their delicious specialty hummus. To learn more about Pure Vitality and all the services they offer, you can visit their website. Next, we're going to head from the serenity of the float pods to a demonstration of military might. Our cameras are now going to focus on Camp Grayling in the next story, where U.S. troops train right here in Michigan for the realities of war.
Camp Grayling is the largest reserve component training site in the country, 147,000 acres, and we also have the largest airspace box that overlays that. It's about 100 nautical miles east-west, 180 miles nautical miles north-south. We've also got Lake Huron that's abutting our Alpena Combat Readiness Training Center. So we can touch all 5 domains of warfare: air, sea, space, land, and cyber.
Every year, thousands of military men and women converge on Camp Grayling to train for war.
In our business, what we need to ensure is that the force is ready. Hope for the best and prepare for the worst, right? And that's the business we are in. And we're not in the hope business, we are in the prepare business. So that if our nation needs us, we are there, and our joint force is trained and ready to answer that call.
And the key word in all of this is joint. Operation Northern Strike is a 2-week multinational training exercise, including Canada, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, the Danes, and the United States. About 6,000 troops took part in Northern Strike, honing their skills for combat.
In the NATO environment, you're working in a coalition or a multinational construct. So just being able to talk to one another, right? Because that gets complicated. You have different systems. The interoperability of those systems, you got to figure that out and get it all, as we say, stitch it together and make it work. The synchronization of joint fires, so from that bomber dropping a bomb, the fighter, the attack, aviation, the helicopters, to our rocket systems, to our artillery, to our mortars, to be able to mass at the decisive time on the battlefield in order to defeat the enemy, that is a very complex problem. To put it all together and get out and train it is what we're doing here, and in a live fire construct. Those are real bombs, real bullets going downrange.
And the action isn't for the faint of heart. The sights and sounds of training at Camp Grayling gives a detailed look at what it takes to prepare for battle. Camp Grayling even has its own village for urban warfare training.
We've got 9 residential structures, 28 buildings. It replicates the buildings that our soldiers could end up fighting in. Within the buildings, there's 441 ports that you can plug in a human target. Pop-up targets, they'll pop right up in the window. And then with laser munitions, with laser weapons, you can plink them down. So you can simulate an attack if you needed to. This village is now plugged into the network. It's part of the Merritt Cyber Range. It's called Griffinville. So there are actually, you've got bad guys out there that can take over buildings and turn on lights and turn off lights and turn the power on and do different things. At the same time, we'll have cyber soldiers trying to protect this village and fight off those attacks.
air assault raid is one of our METs, mission essential tasks. So it's something that as a field artillery unit, in order for us to be able to do our job in combat, we have to be able to execute this in training. When we do exercises like this, we need to have do it in daytime, nighttime. We have to have a certain number of key leaders that are here, a certain number of soldiers that are here during our exercises. And then after that's complete, we're able to say, this is how ready the unit is to go to combat. So to be able to do something like this, which many of our soldiers haven't been able to do, we have the assets of air, and we have another infantry unit that we're working with. This is something that most don't get to see in their careers. It's pretty sweet.
Camp Grayling was established in 1913 when local lumber baron Rasmus Hansen donated 13,000 acres of land specifically for military training purposes. And for our next story, we're going to stay in the Grayling area, but we're going to trade tanks and helicopters for anvils and ovens as we pay a visit to the annual Black Iron Days Festival at the picturesque Hartwick Pine State Park.
One of the greatest things about Black Iron Days is once you start walking down towards the logging museum, there's a smell that hits. It's the coals that are burning, and you hear the sound of the steam-powered sawmill, you hear the tapping of the hammers on the anvils. There's a presence of this event that occurs before you even actually go and experience anything.
During the Black Iron Days Festival at Hartwick Pine State Park, blacksmiths and woodworkers from near and far descend into this old-growth forest to swap stories, put on demonstrations, and celebrate a history that was forged with fire, steel, and a strong set of hands.
To watch a piece of cold iron become red hot and then be able to shape it so easily on an anvil with a hammer, kind of unique. It really is.
My job is making sure that history gets preserved and making sure that our real stories, who we are as people, who we are as Michiganders, gets carried on from generation to generation. This type of event is so wonderful to help do that.
This has been going on since the late 80s. The Friends of Hartwick Pines, a group of volunteers that come and help with projects throughout the park, started it.
Ground them down a little bit.
Lyle Klein is the president of the Friends of Hartwick Pines, and over the years he's witnessed firsthand how this event has grown and grown in popularity.
Well, I've been here for 33 years. The festivals have been the biggest thing that we observed. They have grown significantly. Well, obviously from 3 blacksmiths to what you see here. I haven't seen a count yet, but there's probably 30. I think, like most of the people do, that talking and educating the public is the number one thing that we want to do. Because I was a teacher for over 30 years, so that's kind of where my focus is helping them understand what all the various things were about.
Education really is at the heart of events like this, because visitors not only get a chance to see these blacksmiths in action, but they also have a unique opportunity to be transported to a different time and immerse themselves in this chapter of Michigan's history. And for many visitors, that connection to history is very real.
I think there's a connection that a lot of people have that we'll talk to saying, you know, my grandfather was a blacksmith, or my uncle used to work at this shop and he worked on a lathe. And so it brings back a sense of community and a place-based learning. It also reminds us that, and especially the younger generation, you can make things right in your own backyard with if you have the right equipment.
This type of event is so wonderful to help do that because it's a real skill, a real craft that people are doing just like our forefathers, just like they did in logging camps. And we get to see that today, and hopefully some young people will get inspired and want to take up the hobby themselves. And I know typically on Black Iron Days, all the blacksmiths get kind of overwhelmed with requests. How do I do this? How do I start doing this hobby? And that's wonderful. And that's, from my perspective, that's what I really want to come out of this, is to inspire folks to, how do I start spinning wool? How do I start doing bobbin lace? How do I start blacksmithing?
And whether you're a fan of the artistic or the practical, the old or the new, inspiration can be found at every turn. And the atmosphere is thick with a camaraderie that exists between these craftsmen, sharing what they've learned over a lifetime of shaping steel and wood. Their lessons in hard work and dedication, and a tribute to the notion that with a little bit of patience and a lot of elbow grease, anything is possible.
The fun and learning continue year-round at Hartwick Pines State Park because during the winter months, it's the snowshoe lacing workshops that have visitors testing their patience as they take on the rather daunting task of trying to learn how to lace their very own set of sturdy snowshoes. And our final destination tonight gives us a chance to free our minds and enter a world that is as unique as our imagination dares create. This trip to Ann Arbor will make a believer out of even the most ardent fairy skeptic.
Meet Jonathan B. Wright, a certified fairyologist.
Fairies are very notoriously difficult to spot, so there's that. Children seem to be better at seeing them.
I found another one.
All right.
Fairy door.
Even though I have my fairy spotting goggles, they don't quite seem to function the way I hoped.
Jonathan is the mystical spirit behind Ann Arbor's fairy doors. It all began during a 1993 renovation project in the Wright home, where Kathleen, a teacher and Jonathan's wife, ran a daycare.
Well, that closet is an awkward space, so I thought, oh, I'll put a small door for the kids there. So there was a 3-foot door that was there. Next thing you know, there's a 6-inch one to the right of that down in the baseboard. It opens up to a space between the studs there, and you'll find a tiny little stair inside there, which leads up to another door, which, best of we can tell, is always locked. We've never seen it open. But the kids peered in and they speculated on, who might live in there.
The mystical settlers felt comfy with the Wrights, and other tiny doors appeared around the house.
Over time, the consensus was it was fairies, and from that time on, they became fairy doors. Most people were pretty sure that's who lived there. Those were the years leading up to 2005 when the first one was discovered right where we are outside of Sweetwater's Coffee and Tea. That same month, another door appeared not far from here, a couple blocks away at Salo Cheval Gallery, and then at Peaceable Kingdom, a gift store on Main Street, and it just kind of snowballed, if you will.
And as the fairies built new doors and dwellings, the phenomena attracted thousands of tourists. But there's an even greater magic to this story. Remember, Jonathan's wife is a teacher, so she began to integrate fairy doors into her Young 5 curriculum.
In the science curriculum, there's a unit on habitats. So she takes the children on a tour of the fairy doors and talks about fairy habitats and ties that into squirrels' nests and birds' nests, etc. And the fantasy of fairies really engages the kids, and they are more inspired than to write something about fairies and where they might live and whatnot.
Jonathan even inspired the prestigious C.S. Mott Children's Hospital to incorporate fairy doors in the facility's design.
We have found that implementing things like fairy doors can help in a very simple way to connect them to something that's exciting, that's different, that they can actually have a connection to. What's wonderful about it is being able to communicate and connect families who are coming here plucked out of their lives and their homes to come here for a health reason, to be able to find out what's here in Ann Arbor and what's something that's comforting and helps them to feel less isolated and increases that socialization and hopefully can help reduce anxiety and some of the concerns that they're going through while they're here. I witnessed like a 3-year-old little girl coming through and doing that, and she was having a really difficult day, a really difficult appointment, and her mother said to me afterwards, it was so nice to have a conversation about something that wasn't about the hospital, that was something that the two of us could share. It was a positive experience that we could take away. It really makes a big difference for people.
And with a little fairy dust, the simple fairy door that first appeared in the Wright home mystified imaginations around the world.
I had no idea how it would expand and go. There's a whole industry now around fairy gardens and fairy doors. There are people manufacturing fairy doors, and that's both exciting, inspiring. I had the resources to produce fairy doors, but I like the magic of them just when they show up and the uniqueness of each one, which is fun, as opposed to, you know, a production line fairy door.
So as fairies continue to flock from the woods to set up residence in Ann Arbor, a Destination Michigan flit of the fairy wings to Jonathan and his mystical merriment.
Though I'm 57, I still like to engage the youthfulness of the concept of magical beings and what they might be like. And I think that's good for people to stay in touch with that and not become too jaded with life. That's it.
So the next time you head to Ann Arbor, be sure to put the fairy doors on your itinerary. Jonathan actually has a fairy door tour map available on his website. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us on this episode of Destination Michigan, and from all of us here, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.